I don't feel love, but my therapist dared me to fake it. And somewhere along the way, I think it stopped being a lie. Let's just start with the truth. I'm a diagnosed psychopath. That's not a metaphor or some dark little quirk. It's clinical, official, documented. Antisocial personality disorder, according to the DSM and the woman the state makes me talk to every Thursday at 2 p.m. I've done the tests, answered the questions, sat through the interviews where they ask you how you feel when you hurt someone and watch your face for signs of guilt. Pro tip: they're not looking at your words, they're looking for the little things: hesitation, discomfort, the twitch of the mouth. I pass every time. But let me be clear, I'm not broken. I function, I don't hallucinate, I don't foam at the mouth, I don't torture animals or light things on fire. I just lack whatever mechanism makes other people care about consequences, about people, about feelings. I understand emotions conceptually. I know what sadness looks like, what fear smells like, how love is supposed to sound in someone's voice. But I don't feel them the way others do. Not really. I've been in therapy for almost 4 years now. Not because I wanted help. That part's important. I didn't wake up one day and think, wow, I'd love to be a better person. No, I started therapy because I was told I had to. The court said it would look better. That was after the situation. I won't go into it. Not because it's traumatic. It's not. At least not for me, but because the details tend to make people shift in their seats. It happened in college: a relationship, a lie, a series of decisions that unraveled into something messy and public and irreversible. Someone got hurt, not physically, but in a way that made headlines for a few days. Everyone wanted answers. I gave them none. So, therapy. That was the compromise, and I played along. Still do most of the time. Sit in the chair, not at the right moments. Throw in phrases like, I understand how that might have made her feel, to keep the illusion alive. Most therapists want to believe they're getting through to you. Mine, Dr. Bloom, is no exception. She's sharp, though. I'll give her that. She doesn't flinch easily. And a few months back, she said something strange. She asked if I'd ever been in love. I said no. Obviously, love to me is a biological trick, a messy cocktail of dopamine and projection dressed up in poetry and Pinterest boards. She didn't argue, just leaned forward slightly, the way she does when she's about to say something she knows will sound absurd. I think you should try it, she said. Romantic connection, intimacy, not sex. Emotional vulnerability. Try forming a bond with someone, even if it starts as an experiment. At first, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. She framed it like exposure therapy. If you can't feel empathy, then act as if you do. Build the habit. Create the framework. Maybe the emotion will come later. I told her she was out of her mind. But then I thought about it. Not the love part. That still seemed ridiculous. But the challenge. Could I fake something like that? Not just mimic it in passing, but sustain it? Build something convincing enough that the other person couldn't tell the difference? That intrigued me. I've always liked puzzles, and people are the most interesting kind. All soft spots and blind sides and contradictions. What better way to understand how they work than by getting someone to fall in love with me? So, I agreed. Not because I wanted to feel anything, but because I wanted to see if I could make someone else feel everything, without ever actually feeling it myself. Lena came into my life the way a whisper catches your attention in a crowded room. Soft, subtle, but impossible to ignore once you hear it. She was a friend of a friend situation, someone I met at a casual dinner party. It wasn't even a big thing. A few people gathered, drinks flowing, low music humming in the background. She sat across from me, warm brown eyes, quiet laugh, and that unnerving quality some people have of actually listening when others talk. You could tell she heard things most people missed. She remembered I didn't like olives. I said it once, while picking them off a slice of pizza. A week later, she offered me a snack and said, "No olives. I remember you hate them." That's the kind of person Lena is: gentle, thoughtful, the kind of woman who writes real thank you notes and checks in on people for no reason. No edge, no game, just soft corners and open doors, which made her perfect. My therapist wanted me to connect emotionally, to try forming a romantic bond as a way of stimulating empathy pathways. It sounded like bullshit, but I was bored and I like puzzles. And Lena? Lena was a clean slate, a wide eyed optimist who probably cried during Pixar movies and believed in love languages. So I played my part. I mirrored her tone, watched her expressions, copied the things she did that got warm responses. I smiled when she smiled. I asked follow up questions, leaned forward just the right amount, made my voice softer around the edges. When she mentioned her mom used to braid her hair before school, I stored that detail like a note in my mental Rolodex. I downloaded dating apps just to scroll and study. Not to meet people, but to decode behaviors. Then I binged every healthy relationship rom-com and YouTube advice video I could find. What does a loving partner look like, act like, say? I took notes. Every move I made was deliberate, not because I cared, but because I wanted to see if I could pull it off. I wasn't cruel about it. I didn't lie unnecessarily, but I also didn't correct her when she started projecting meaning onto things I didn't mean. Like the time I bought her favorite tea without her asking. She said, "You're so thoughtful." In reality, I'd made a checklist the week before. Small gestures, match words to feelings, repeat. She started to fall for me quickly. You could feel it in the way she looked at me. Soft, trusting, like she was letting herself be seen. That was new to me. People usually look at you with their armor still on. But Lena didn't have armor. She had hope. And I wore the right mask for it. We went on long walks, had deep conversations that I mostly guided with prepared questions, like a therapist running a session. I touched her hand at the right moments, timed compliments with perfect pacing. When she laughed, I laughed too. When she cried, once, after talking about her grandmother's passing, I studied the way people are supposed to respond. I tilted my head. I said, "I'm here." I pulled her in. She melted into me like I was safe. The truth is, I didn't feel anything. Not like she did. I recognized her beauty. I noticed the curve of her smile, the way she curled into herself when she was cold, the texture of her voice when she was half asleep. I noticed everything. But it was observation, not emotion. It was data, research. She wasn't a person to me. She was a project. Lena fell in love with me fast, faster than I expected. Maybe it was the way I mirrored her, reflected her back to herself like a cleaner version. People fall in love with who they think you are. She thought I was gentle, patient, safe. I gave her space to talk, and I listened, or looked like I did, nodded in the right places, echoed her words with just enough variation to seem insightful. When she told me about her childhood, the distant father, the friendships that faded without explanation, I offered lines I'd picked up from therapy podcasts. That must have made you feel invisible. She teared up. I handed her a tissue, placed my hand over hers. She called me intuitive. My therapist started noticing the difference, too. They said I seemed more emotionally available. I played along, said it was hard at first, but Lena made it easier. They smiled, wrote something encouraging in their little notepad. Progress, apparently, but what no one saw, what I didn't even fully realize at the time, was how much I enjoyed control. Lena gave me access to her mind, her heart, her habits, and I used them. I didn't isolate her the obvious way. No ultimatums or locked doors. I just planted ideas, asked why she always had to text her friend back immediately, pointed out how her mother's tone seemed critical lately. When she got invited to a weekend trip with coworkers, I I said, I mean, you can go, but it's just, we've had so little time lately. She stayed. I'd twist moments just slightly, make her doubt her memory, her instincts, her judgment. If she got upset, I'd stay calm, too calm. So when she cried, she felt like she was overreacting. Then I'd comfort her, wrap my arms around her, and say, "It's okay, I know it's hard." I became her safe place and her storm. She stopped seeing people as much, called me when she was anxious, asked me what I thought before making small decisions. And every time she turned to me, a part of me felt powerful, not loved, but needed. I liked that feeling. Then one night, the script broke. We were watching a movie. Something stupid, romantic, forgettable. Halfway through, Lena went quiet. Not just distracted, absent. I paused the movie, asked if she was okay. She shook her head, and then she crumbled. No preamble, no buildup, just tears. Raw. Heavy. The kind of crying that isn't pretty. Not cinematic or soft. This was shaking shoulders, red eyes, hands clenched in her lap like she was trying to hold herself together. She said she felt like she was disappearing, that she didn't know who she was anymore, that she loved me, but she was scared. I don't know what's wrong with me lately. I should have comforted her. That's what I'd rehearsed. That's what I knew to do. But I just sat there because for the first time, something shifted. I felt something. It wasn't compassion, not quite, but it was a pause, a twinge, a flicker of something foreign and unwelcome, like a skipped heartbeat or a flash of pain you can't locate. I stared at her and thought, what if she leaves? That night, I didn't sleep, not well. I lay next to her and watched her face in the dim light, and I kept thinking, she matters. Not like a person you admire or someone you cherish. She mattered like oxygen, like a locked door I suddenly wanted to keep shut. I started dreaming about her. Not romantic dreams, not sex either. Just her leaving. Or worse, her laughing with someone else. Her moving on. I didn't understand it, but I knew one thing. I didn't want to lose her. Not because I loved her, because I needed her. It wasn't affection, it was possession. It was hunger. It was the awful realization that my control wasn't as complete as I thought. Because now she had a piece of me. And I didn't know how to take it back. It started with one sentence. We were sitting on the balcony, drinking tea. She was wrapped in a blanket, eyes scanning the sky like she was waiting for something to fall. Then she looked at me, really looked, and said, "Sometimes I feel like you're just pretending to care." It hit like a slap, even though her voice was calm, not angry, just tired. Inside, I froze. No, more than that. I panicked. Rage flickered under the surface like a pilot light catching flame. How dare she? After everything I'd given her, after the time, the attention, the work. But I didn't show it. I nodded slowly, reached for her hand, said, "I'm sorry you feel that way." I almost choked on the words. She didn't pull away, but she didn't smile either. That night, I couldn't sleep again. Not because I cared in the way people mean it, but because she was slipping. I could feel it. The leash was loosening. My control, my center, was unraveling, and the thing I'd constructed so carefully was cracking. So I doubled down. I bought her favorite flowers the next day, even though she'd never asked for them. Took her on a surprise weekend trip to the coast, cooked her breakfast, memorized more phrases from therapy blogs. Emotional validation, active listening, safe vulnerability. I told her I loved her. Not because I meant it. I still didn't know what that meant, but because I thought it might anchor her to me again. But something shifted in her eyes. She smiled, yes, but it didn't reach her the way it used to. Later that week, my therapist told me, "You might be developing emotional depth. That's good." Good. Number. It felt like drowning. I didn't want to feel. I didn't want to wake up sweating from dreams I couldn't control or spend whole days spiraling because Alina hadn't texted back in 2 hours. I didn't want to care what she thought. I wanted her in place, predictable, loyal, mine. Instead, I was unraveling, and I hated it. I don't know how she found it. Maybe I was sloppy. Maybe I wanted her to see it. Maybe some part of me wanted to test her, to see if she'd still love me after knowing the truth. It was my therapy journal, a small black notebook I kept under the bed. Not for feelings, for documentation, page after page of cold observations, behavioral patterns, triggers, timelines. Lena responds well to delayed validation. Use silence as reward. Eye contact equals vulnerability. Hold until she looks away. Say, I understand when she talks about pain. You don't have to mean it. And worse, she is the experiment. Track emotional shifts. Correlate with physical touch, gift giving, intimacy, patterns. I came home and found her sitting in silence, the notebook on her lap like it had bitten her. She didn't speak at first, just stared at me with this look I'll never forget. Not anger, not even sadness, horror. When she finally did speak, her voice was small. Was any of it real? I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. She threw the notebook at me, not hard, just enough to make it clear she couldn't stand the sight of it. Or me. You studied me, she said, like I was a lab rat. Her hands were shaking. I told you things I've never told anyone, and you were just collecting data. I wanted to deny it, to explain, to spin it. But I couldn't. I stood there, staring blankly at her, the way I'd stared at every crying person I'd ever seen. But this time, I felt something, panic. Not just at the idea of her leaving, but at what it meant. At the look she gave me, like I was a monster, like I wasn't real. And then something else crept in. Slower, deeper, shame, maybe even regret. The unfamiliar ache of knowing I'd broken something I didn't know how to fix. She packed a small bag, walked out, no screaming, no goodbye, just gone. I texted, nothing, called, blocked, emailed, no response. She didn't disappear. She just erased me. And for the first time in my life, I understood what people meant when they said, I lost something I'll never get back. The silence after she left was louder than any fight we could have had. I kept thinking she'd come back, that she'd cool off, maybe talk to someone, start to doubt herself the way I trained her to, but she didn't. She vanished, and she took the illusion with her. My therapist said, that's grief. That's remorse. I said nothing. What was I supposed to say? Oops, didn't know I had that in me? I couldn't sleep. Not like before. Before, sleep was easy. No guilt, no spinning thoughts, just clean exits from one day to the next. Now, I lay there staring at the ceiling, tracing conversations in my head, remembering her laugh in microscopic detail, and hating how much I missed it. I couldn't focus either. Work blurred. Music stopped making sense. Food lost taste. Everything that used to feel like background noise now felt sharp, like the volume got cranked up on life, and I didn't know how to turn it back down. I started writing her letters, pages and pages. I never sent them. What would I even say? Sorry I dismantled your sense of self, so I wrote the truth instead. I lied about how much I cared, until I didn't. I think I ruined the only person I might have actually loved. I kept that one in a drawer I never open anymore. 6 months later, I'm still in therapy, still dissecting myself like roadkill under a microscope, still trying to name things I'm not wired to feel in a language that doesn't quite fit in my mouth. I'm still a psychopath. That hasn't changed. The diagnosis holds. I don't cry at movies. I don't feel empathy the way others do. I still catch myself analyzing people like puzzles, still feel that cold click of observation before emotion. But something did shift. There's no new relationship, No rebound, no swipe right distraction, just silence and sessions. And the echo of someone who looked at me like I was human before I ever felt like one. I don't know if I can love like other people, but for a second, I think I almost did. And that haunts me.